An award-winning News 24 investigation spurred the eventual turnaround of an entire region's poor water infrastructure and supply. And while it's a relief today that the embattled Mogale City Metro has pulled its socks up and stopped streams of effluent from flowing into the Hartbeespoort Dam, we can report that the people of Kagiso continue to live with human excrement flowing outside their front doors.
So the concern is people live in very undignified situations where to get out of your home or to get into your home, to get into the clinic, to get into a daycare center, you have to hop over feces.
We get an update on the Gauteng Wasteland's water woes with Taku Caper award-winning investigative journalist Sikonathi Mantshantsha next. Later in the show, we cross to the home of cricket for News 24's sports editor Lloyd Burnett's hot take on the fire the Proteas are bringing against the Aussies at Lords.
Yeah, what a day of Test cricket it was, and a hell of a good toss for South Africa to win. 212 all-outs Australia at the end of their first innings, and it seemed obviously like a very good total from a South African point of view, but really it could have been a bit less if you factor in the review that wasn't.
And finally, most new cars coming to SA these days are produced in China and India. So ever wondered which models aren't?
To stay tuned to The Lead for every edition, hit the follow and subscribe buttons on our Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels.
Stay tuned until the end of the show to hear all of your voice notes. And if you'd like to engage us on this episode's topics, send your thoughts and opinions to our official The Lead WhatsApp line. That number 072 562 3179. My name's Graham Robenheimer. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. In 2024, News 24's Wasteland expose uncovered the true source of the Gauteng Wasteland's unbearable smell. It was the old Percy Stewart wastewater treatment plant, which was illegally dumping untreated, heavily polluted water into the Blaugatspruit River that eventually feeds into the Hartbeespoort Dam further downstream. Now, this raw sewage seeping into crucial water sources, farms and homes threatened the livelihoods of everyone around these crucial river conduits. Today, investigative journalist Sikonathi Mantshantsha reports that much of the plant's problems have been seen to after Mogale City pumped millions in. But for Kagiso's residents, their daily reality remains grim. Mantshantsha joins us now from our Johannesburg studios. Welcome back to The Leads, Sikonathi. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks for the invitation.
Let's start with the plant, Sikonathi. I know that you recently sort of went back to the area. You wanted to see how things were doing. You inspected the turnaround project undertaken by the Mogale City after the pressure of our expose. What did you uncover? I see in your reporting that there wasn't that usual sort of foul smell in the air.
Graham, first I went there on my own without the municipal officials knowing that I'm going there to just check things out. And obviously on such a day, you couldn't get access into the plant, but you'd go around, walk around it and smell the air. It's all nice and clean in terms of the air pollution. Grounds have been cleaned up. It's cleaned itself up because the pumps are now working and all the water is going where it should, except, yes, of course, it's still not as clean. So there is a lot of activity and they have done a lot of work.
How much has been pumped into this project thus far, Sikonathi? I mean, there was millions committed here. And what did you note about the state of the plant itself?
About 100 million rands has been spent so far to restart or to restore the wastewater treatment plant. And as I say, Graham, it does look really good because they have now dug up all the caked sewage and things look better. The plant has now been secured, and they have actually also placed very well armed security guards 24 hours at the operation, because that's it's in an area almost on farms surrounded by old and now disused gold mines. So there's a lot of Zamazama activity, and of course I suppose when things didn't go as well as the Zamazamas would have liked in the mines or in their makeshift shafts, the plant was easy target and offering low-hanging fruit for them in the form of the copper cables, which they stole, and some of the metal. So that has now been secured, or at least a large part of it.
Sikonathi, the water quality itself, in your reporting, you say you can see the bottom of the riverbed now as the Blaugatsbreed moves onwards into that critical river conduit that we've been speaking of. But in terms of the actual water quality standards being okay enough for residents downstream to be able to drink, to be able to use, what is the municipality saying at this stage? And, how long will it take until it's up to sort of, South African or global standards?
Wastewater treatment plants work under a water license that in terms of the National Water Act. So that specifies the quality of water that must be released out of the plant or recycled, which is sewage coming in and processed and the water cleaned up. So it must meet a particular standard in terms of the Water Act for it to be released back into the river systems. Yes, that the municipality has not yet achieved that level, and I am comparing with the water that is now coming out of the plant to what I saw when I first went back there in July 2024, which was stinking black sludge with lumps of faces going into the river. There has now been a significant improvement. It is not yet where it should be in terms of meeting the license requirement. The municipality readily admits that, and it will get to that level as they complete the work of restoring the plant, and they have estimated around July 2026 for them to be able to achieve the water standard and then be able to declare that no pollution is taking place.
And what have their attitudes been towards you? I know that the last time we spoke, obviously, you were looking back, reminiscing on all the hard work that you'd done in the initial Wasteland expose, Sikonathi, and how it was difficult to sort of get any real serious undertaking from the municipality. Once you've finally got everybody into the same room and the word was out and suddenly it got, Pretoria's attention, suddenly everybody was a little bit more understanding. You were finally on the same page and you could move ahead. Coming back, do you receive any sort of flack for staying on top of the project, or is it been fairly welcoming in its own right?
Graham, it is totally being welcomed by the municipal officials. They actually see the value that News 24 has brought to them by the attention and the unwanted attention, of course, that we've delivered on this, getting the attention of the national government as far high as the president and the provincial government. That has delivered the resources they needed in order to effect the repairs. So they are very welcoming, and they actually they accept News 24 as a very valuable partner. They have won some awards now from the local government association in terms of what they are now allocating funds for in terms of maintenance and repairs. They actually thank us loudly and say, keep up the good work. So it's quite unusual, a response. And of course, it is the kind of response that we should want. It should be the rule rather than the exception. It is very welcome. They are quite pleased that we have actually opened the doors for them in terms of them being able to get resources from the central government.
That's all good and well. It's fantastic to hear. But of course, your report today, Sikonathi, points to the fact that if we look at the area of Kagiso itself, that particular suburb, I mean, the pictures speak for themselves. You can see human feces, along the roads, the makeshift roads and pavements of that particular area in 2024. And you're reporting now 8 months since the local mayor there, Lucky Sele, had said, we're going to turn things around here in this particular area. What's the situation like there, Sikonathi?
The situation in Kagiso is quite concerning, exactly for that reason, that not much has been done. I accept, of course, that not everything could be done in one day or in the period that they have set, but the reality of the ground is that the people of Kagiso in the township of Krugersdorp really have to live with faces flooding and polluting their living spaces, like inside their homes, inside their houses. That's because the municipality 30 years ago, when those settlements were started, the municipality dug up and put in the main sewage pipe behind at the back of the yards, all designed for one toilet per household. That outside brick toilet, that's what they had in mind. But 30 years later, people have built and extended their RDP houses into modern homes where they have 2 or 3 bathrooms each, and therefore requiring larger municipal pipes. The municipality has to and says it will, but it doesn't yet have the budget or the date. It will move those pipes from outside of from inside the yard out onto the streets where municipal pipes should be laid out in the first place, and they will fit bigger pipes. Until such thing happens, which is not a year from now, I can tell you, it will probably still be a few years. If they really do carry on to it, they need to put in a larger pipe in order to accommodate the load, of course, and the growing population there. So the concern is people live in very undignified situations where to get out of your home or to get into your home, to get into the clinic, to get into a daycare center, you have to hop over feces.
What are the residents saying, Sikonathi? I mean, that has been their experience for the longest time.
The residents are naturally unhappy about it and don't actually believe that they will get any respite soon. After all, they have lived 28 years like this, every day having to mop up lumps of faces from their yards. They do, of course, live in hope, but they are not very optimistic. Only because they have seen so many promises over the past 28 years and nothing has ever been fulfilled. So the mayor, it was on the 31st of October 2024 when I took him there, when he promised these the people that live there that he would sort this out. Of course, he didn't give timelines, but the reality is this needs to be sorted out. Nobody should be made to live like that.
Sure. Okay, so for the overall region's tourism, though, it does seem a bit promising at the moment. If we go back to the Percy plant itself, we can see that the nearby Brookwood Trout Farm, you illuminated this in your initial expose, that's in fact when he wasn't president at the time, but of course Cyril Ramaphosa even used to fish at that particular farm, and there's now this famous picture of him, of course, at that particular location. I find it fantastic that at least in your reporting today, we can see this particular farm bouncing back. They're finally getting visitors again. People are braaiing out in the sun. How was it returning to the area and seeing it sort of slowly return to normal?
It's a beautiful valley, Graham, that cradle of humankind. That's where you find the Sterkfontein caves. You find all the fossil hominids there and research centers. It's a beautiful valley where the Blaubank Spruit and the Blaugat and the Crocodile River meet and all flow towards the Hartbeespoort Dam. The fact that the water released out of the plant is much cleaner. Let's repeat again, it's not yet where it should be. It's much cleaner. It has removed the stench. People couldn't go there to enjoy the outdoors while it was stinking like that. Now the stench is gone. A lot of people are returning to the farms. A lot of people are returning to the Stekfontein caves, which was polluted by this wastewater treatment plant. They are returning certainly to the Hartbeespoort Dam. It looks good. We're still not there yet. Yes, the Brookwood Trout Farm, which hosted on average about 300 families or 300 people a week, or during the weekends in the good old days when the water was really clean and there was no pollution. People going out there to fish and swim and teach their children how to swim in the flowing streams and fish in the rivers. They are now returning. The farm has now recorded about 40 to 45 visitors per weekend, which is still much down from the 300 in their good old days. Those 300 plus guests, of course, did include one Cyril Ramaphosa back in the day. They also did include army fishing days, where the National Defence Force would take out its personnel, its officers, for team building exercises. There were also, of course, the ambassadorial staff from the European countries. Some of them, notably Russia, the Baines, the family that runs the farm, couldn't stop talking about how beautiful those days were when they would have diplomats and dignitaries from all over the world choosing their sport to relax, which is very conveniently placed 30 minutes outside of Johannesburg.
Absolutely stunning. Some positive news, of course, whilst unfortunately that the daily reality for Kagiso's people remains dire. Last time we spoke, Sikonathi, you'd also revealed via a top story on News 24 that Rand Water, of course, which often sometimes struggles with its own issues, but it's launched a new entity now called the Vaal Water Corporation. I found this quite fascinating because it's essentially going to now assist in the Mfuleni region closer to Vereniging. Any updates there since the announcement of that particular new corporation, and do we know what their first sort of port of call would be?
Definitely, Graham. So this is the Mfuleni local municipality is the one bordering the Free State province on the Vaal River south of Gauteng. And Rand Water has been working to assist that municipality, and they really have done a great job in fixing the municipality's wastewater treatment works. Similar to what we've just been discussed about Mogale City and Percy Stewart. They have done a good job. They have now decided to make it a permanent, a special purpose vehicle to do this kind of work, and they are spreading it across all of Gauteng's municipalities where there is a great need. Not much has yet been done because it's a new entity, and it's really taking over the running of the Mfuleni local municipalities bulk water infrastructure and sewage. So we hope for great things to happen there. The clean up in Mfuleni, which is being spearheaded by Rand Water, which was appointed by the minister as the implementing agent, has done a great job to clean up the pollution and to fix the infrastructure. The fact that they are now creating a permanent and a professional entity can only bode well for the future, and the people of Sharpeville, Kagiso, Boipatong, Vereniging itself, Meertin, can only really hope for better treatment from their government and their local councillors.
Sikonathi, what remains a big question mark for you throughout the Wasteland expose thus far? What's that sort of outstanding element that still sort of bugs you a little bit, that you could perhaps be following up on? Or do you feel like this chapter's closed?
The chapter is far from closed. What we have seen at Mogale City, at the Mfuleni local municipality, is only a drop in the ocean, unfortunately. As you know from the Auditor General's reports, the state of municipalities across the country, about 80% of municipalities are in dire straits. They have neglected to do the job for which they are mandated. And unfortunately, the biggest of those is such infrastructure as water reticulation, as the sewage treatment. So there is a lot to be done. What does bug me a lot is lack of accountability. Nobody gets arrested, nobody gets prosecuted, even as the Department of Water and Sanitation has laid criminal charges, certainly including in the case of Mogale City, in the case of the Emfuleni local municipality, which again, let's repeat, covers very critical industrial areas such as Vereeniging in the south of Gauteng and pollutes very strategic and important water sources for the whole country, like the Vaal River.
And then you see happening in Parliament this week, you have the Water and Sanitation Minister, Sikonathi Pemi Majordina. She appeared before the Scopa Committee, and she basically said that the country, she believes, does not have a sort of bulk water crisis, rather pointing, to the infrastructure, and that's not an issue, and that it's actually the supply of water that's the problem. Knowing everything that we know about the Water and Sanitation Ministry, years and years of wasteful spending there, especially under their predecessors like Nomvula Mokonyane. Your feeling about where we stand from a government standpoint, what needs to be done?
Graham, you have to wonder in what world does that minister live in for her to speak like that about water infrastructure in this country when billions and billions of liters of water are being wasted and not able to reach the destination, which is the end user, because they are wasted by rotten infrastructure, as we have spoken now about wastewater treatment works. You have to wonder in what world does the minister live in when the whole country is covered in sewage because municipalities are not implementing or are not conducting maintenance and repairs on their infrastructure. For her to come and say there is no crisis, it's absolutely hogwash. And again, that's the kind of arrogance that we have seen from the government. If they lived in the world in which you and I live, certainly up here in Johannesburg, you cannot drive more than 3 kilometers without seeing burst pipes, without seeing sewage flowing from manholes that should have been repaired but have not. And for the minister to come out and make such a statement really leaves a lot to be desired.
Absolutely. Northwest Province for me as well, Sikonathi, has been a ticking time bomb for many, many years, especially in some of the areas, Klipvoer, around those parts, past the Madibeng district. I mean, that has been a concern for the longest time. No doubt, Sikonathi, I like to think of the municipal elections as being possibly our most important sometimes. Obviously, our national elections gets a lot of coverage, but I'm looking forward to, us as journalists going out, seeing the true extent of service delivery in our towns, and water has to be front and center as a major concern in that regard. Even here in the Western Cape, where drought conditions had threatened a day zero scenario not so long ago.
Look, the elections are quite a nice pressure point, but unfortunately in the South African context, you have elections every 2 years in the sense that you have national government elections or general elections, and then you have local government elections, and in between you have the major political parties running their own internal elections. Those do serve to actually disrupt the momentum, but they also help to focus the minds of the politicians. So there isn't going to be too much of a difference in these instances where civil servants should have nothing to do with elections but should concern themselves with the technical work of fixing their equipment and infrastructure. Of course, when people see sewage flowing in their streets and their cities and their towns, like they do at Emfuleni, in Boipatong, in Sharpeville, when they do in Kagiso, the electorate has to take note, and with us as journalists highlighting those failures prominently should help spur them into action. But unfortunately, let's repeat this again, elections in South Africa are always serving as a disruptor because of the regularity and the short-term thinking of the politicians, where they just think posing next to pretending to be fixing a problem, going out there when you hear there's a problem, is the equivalent of doing it. It is not.
Sure, and that picture of the president next to that tap, I can't remember exactly when that was, but that's one that always sort of comes to mind. Sikonathi, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it here on The Lead, and perhaps we'll be bumping into each other out on in the various towns as we make our way through to the municipal elections in 2026. I can't wait to see what you do next in the Wasteland series.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you.
Shifting to our trending topic now, and we're day 2 at the home of cricket, with the Aussies and the Proteas squaring off in the World Test Championship final at Lords. The News 24 sport team's been closely watching every red ball bounce here in the studios, especially after Kagiso Rabada's stellar performance to claim 5 wickets, overtaking Alan Donald on the honours board there. Now, editor Lloyd Burner joins me in studio now for a quick update. Thanks so much for joining us on The Lead, Lloyd. Your summary of day 1, specifically in a nutshell. I mean, obviously, Kagiso Rabada was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, what a day of Test cricket it was, and a hell of a good toss for South Africa to win. 212 all-outs Australia at the end of their first innings, and it seemed obviously like a very good total from a South African point of view, but really it could have been a bit less if you factor in the review that wasn't. Bo Webster ended up making a half century. He could have been out for very little had the Proteas simply reviewed when he was at the early stages of his innings. So, I mean, it could have been different. 160 was the number you thought maybe South Africa could have got to. But look, 212 on day 1, South Africa would have taken it. It was just a brilliant day of cricket. I mean, super dramatic. It had a bit of everything. It had a bit of spice with the decisions that didn't quite go South Africa's way. And then, of course, at the end of day 1, the Australian quicks just rumble through the Proteas top order and change things immediately. So it set things up pretty nicely for what's to come.
I've got 1 or 2 British friends over on that side, and obviously being it's summer, they're so excited to watch some fantastic cricket at the moment. But as we speak, the complexity of the game has somewhat shifted. Captain Temba Bavuma's wicket has thus fallen. Is that a big game changer here?
It is a big moment in the game. It does feel like that. The Proteas were in such trouble when they resumed this morning, and they were so defensive in that last session last night. Temba came out this morning and played beautifully. I mean, he was punchy. He was hitting Pat Cummins and Stark over extra cover, not even looking to keep the ball down. He pulled, I think it was Pat Cummins, into the stands for a wonderful 6, and really, counter punched South Africa back into this game with a very, very fluid, pretty innings. I mean, it was really good to watch, and he was cruising and looking very comfortable. And then he's hit one, kind of not too sure, looked whether to go over the top or keep it down, and hit it straight to cover, and Pat Cummins got him out. So yes, I mean, Temba was just a different batsman to what we saw yesterday. It is a big wicket, but the Proteas have a bit of a tail. You've got Marco Jansen, Keshav Maharaj, Kagiso Rabada, can all, if you go 20 runs each there, hopefully, and then if Verena and Beddingham, who are batting as we speak, might do something, but it's difficult to predict what's going to happen, especially given the nature of what we've seen over the first 4 sessions of the game.
And then your hot take, I thought, whilst we have you on the hot seat very, very quickly, on the current state of the Proteas, there was a lot of hype going into this. I mean, for obvious reasons, but especially around Bavuma and what the Proteas can offer.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge moment for South African cricket. South African cricket is so starved of quality test matches. I think in this entire 2-year cycle of the World Test Championship, nobody played less games than South Africa. They played 12 games overall, and you put that into context, England played 22. So the big 3, India, Australia, England, they have the lion's share of tours and series, and you've got the Ashes, and that's where all of the attention and the money goes. So yeah, I mean, it's a big deal for South Africa to go, hang on, we're still here. We are former, number 1 ranked test team, and we are here to do something special that we've never done before, and they're playing against probably the best bowling attack in the world. So absolutely, I mean, this is the tournament's been criticized for its structure and its format, and rightly so. It is flawed, and that's a problem, but you can't take away anything from South Africa. They played what was in front of them, and they're here, and it's a massive moment for South African cricket.
And that's News 24 sport editor Lloyd Bernard. Of course, our live blog of day 2 is currently on the front page of News 24 Sport. If you'd like to stay abreast with all the proceedings there, it's been fantastic scenes coming out of the UK. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Lloyd.
Are you burnt out from the week that was, but need to stay in the news loop? Every Saturday morning at 6, we release The Weekender, a quirky, in-depth look at South Africa and its people. Chock full of exclusive interviews, food, wine, playlists, and opinions, The Weekender is the ultimate segue into Saturday, right here on News 24.
And finally, most new vehicles coming to South Africa these days are produced in China and India, so ever wondered which models aren't? News 24's journalist Ryan Bube has you covered, finding that around 74% of all new light vehicles coming to South Africa last year were made by the two BRICS partners. This is not a surprise to be sure, but the locations of which the other cheap light vehicles are being exported here from might be. Ever heard of the Proton Saga? Sounds like a video game. Well, it's a car currently manufactured in Malaysia, and you can pick up a 1.3 litre for around 200,000 rand new. Hailing from South Korea, the more popular and pricier Kia Picanto will set you back around 240,000 bucks off the showroom floor. Of course, the old faithful Polo Vivo, that Volkswagen notorious for attracting hijackers, is also proudly manufactured in the Eastern Cape. An entry-level model will cost you around 272,000 rand. So where do you guess the Fiat 500 is made? No, not Italy, silly, but Poland, and you'll fork out a cool 300 grand for a 1.2 litre. Well, to find out which brand takes the fifth spot, you'll just have to become a News 24 subscriber and read Ryan's full piece under News 24 Live. From cheapish cars made elsewhere to the latest from Lords, the lead is growing in leaps and bounds, and we only have you to thank for listening. Let's listen to some of your voice notes on the previous edition's topic. Last episode of The Lead was Voterbasson versus HPCSA Round 2. We had journalist Tammy Peterson here in our Cape Town studios telling us how Voterbasson, otherwise sometimes known as Dr. Death, it's a sort of moniker that he's struggled to shrug off over the years. He's now launched a High Court application for a permanent stay of disciplinary proceedings now brought again by the HPCSA against him over his involvement in the apartheid government's secret chemical and biological warfare program, otherwise known as Project Coast, but more or less got to do with the alleged offensive aspects of that program and not so much the defensive side of things. We heard extensive details from Tammy about the elements that voter claims are working in his favor and that he claims that he can't remember much from about 40 years ago. Let's have a listen to some of your voice notes on the matter. We've got quite a few. We're starting with this.
Hi, Timmy. Why did he even take HPCSA to court? Because his plan was well documented. I think he's just trying to avoid accountability there. Thank you.
SPCA, they're very quick to judge. They hardly support the practitioners. You understand? They hardly. All the SPAs they're only looking for money. For example, you can see people that they done basic ambulance assistance and firefighter. Every year they have to pay 1,000 rand. Every year, even when they're not working. SPA, they don't even make a plan. They say, okay, they can pay 50%, well, because they're not working. They don't care. Every year we have a basic ambulance assistance / firefighter. They have to pay 1,000 rand every month. So SPCA, they're only looking after the money. They're not looking after the practitioners.
Now I think all that they must do is to speak to Baso, to Voter Basono, to come up with a medication that can do away with this disease. Fighting that manner will do us no good, will take us nowhere, because he's full of himself. He's a fighter. He's fighting for the white nation. He's too white. He's an Afrikaner.
Sure, some strong comments there coming from our lead listeners. Thank you so much for all of your voice notes. I really do feel that the Votabason saga requires a deep dive in the future, perhaps, us looking a lot closer at the entire history and the scope of things. If you'd like to engage us on this episode's topics, send your thoughts and opinions to our official The Lead WhatsApp line on 072 562 3179. You can also mail us if you'd like, thelead@24.com. And to be reminded of all our future episodes, you can hit the follow and subscribe buttons on our Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels. The Lead will be back with a fresh episode next week, Wednesday, so look out for that. Of course, Monday is indeed a public holiday. Well, my name's Graham Robenheimer, and so long as there's quality investigative journalism, the latest from our sport desk, and motoring musings, we'll have The Lead.